This video has been a long time coming. I built my guinea pig cage about 2 years ago now, and long story short, I filmed the whole process, but the footage was lost. So now I'm basically just taking a bunch of pictures that I took during the process and trying to put it together as like a slideshow-ish type of a thing, and hopefully seeing if that will work. The basic idea for this guinea pig cage is we wanted as big as cage as we could accommodate in our space, wanted it to be on a tabletop height, cat proof, dog proof, and easy to clean. And I really feel like we made it work with this cage. So the first thing we did was we measured the space that we wanted, and we basically wanted to find the biggest table that we could find. And we ended up finding this 9-foot by 4-foot table on Craigslist for about $75, and went ahead and snatched that up, shoved that as best we could into the back of our CRV, and took that home, sanded it, painted it, sealed it, and went ahead and got started on the cage design. So for the cage, we wanted to go ahead and use the whole space of the table and also utilize our current 2-tier hutch. So this was kind of the idea that we came up with. It's kind of utilizing the hutch and bordering in the rest of the table, enclosing all of it with lids and with front doors to access everything. It's kind of inspired off of like a rabbit hutch type of design. So that's kind of the look that we were going for. So the first thing we did was we got a pond liner and went ahead and draped it over the whole base of the cage. That's going to be our waterproof barrier between the tabletop and the bottom of the cage. That's going to be what the bedding, fleece, whatever you're going to use is going to be sitting on top of. Obviously, pond liners are made to be waterproof and hold water, so they're really durable, easy to clean, and keeps the wood protected. So after the pond liner was cut to size, we went ahead and started modifying our current 2-tier hutch. The main things that we wanted to change were to pitch the roof and to modify the innermost panel and front doors. So to pitch the roof, we pretty much took off the top panel of the roof and just added some 2x4s to make as best of an arch that we could. It was really trial and error for us. We didn't use any specific measurements. It was kind of a lot of making my husband go back outside and recut things because I'm eyeballing it all. And probably not the best tactic, but it ended up working out pretty well. We did some 45-degree cuts on some 2x4s and went ahead and angled the roof to no specific angle, just aesthetic. And I think it worked out really well. So we popped off the innermost side panel of the hutch as well and kind of did a rectangular square-ish cutout, kind of like a doggy door. My intention was to kind of make like a home base for my girls. They feel a lot more comfortable in an enclosed space. Since we have quite a few, I kind of wanted to make like a big hide that they could all sleep, feel comfortable in. Eventually, I ended up changing this in the future. I went ahead and removed the kind of cutout doggy door type of style to just making it a flat surface, so cutting it all the way down to the pond liner. It just made more sense. It didn't get as mucky and made the bottom floor all one level. It is personal preference, but that's just what I ended up doing in the future. We went ahead and removed the bottom front door of the hutch, and we kept the top door on there because we weren't sure if we'd still be able to utilize it. It folds downward, so we ended up changing that in the future, but for now we just modified the innermost wall and pitched the roof and took off the bottom door that was going to be open. After the hutch was modified, we went ahead and popped that on top of the table and actually added a sawhorse underneath the table just to add extra support. We didn't really see a problem with the weight on this particular table, but it is a secondhand table, so just for extra support and security. Not really necessary, but it made us feel better. So after the hutch was on there and the sawhorse was secured, we focused on framing in the base of the cage. We went ahead and opted for using 1x2 pieces of wood, framing in the perimeter, and wrapping those pieces of wood with pond liner. The way we wrapped it kind of made a ramping effect of the pond liner, so if any liquids or, water, urine are on there, they'll pull towards the middle as opposed to the edge where the wood meets the pond liner. That way, there's no chance of water sitting in any liquid sitting near the edge of the table where the wood meets it. So you're not going to have any problems with anything leaking out, spilling out, or even just liquid sitting on the wood. As you know, guinea pigs, they do urinate quite a bit, and there's a lot of wood in this DIY design, so you don't really want that sitting in urine. That's just going to cause you problems down the road. Even if you do seal it, there's still going to be issues if you have constant wet on top of wood. Also, makes it easier to clean. I know whenever I used coroplast in a CNC cage type of design, there was always muck that kind of got jammed into the corners. If you've had a CNC cage, you know what I mean. It's just gunk that kind of builds up there in the corners and creases that you can never clean out. With this ramping kind of effect with the pond liner, there's no corners, so nothing really gets stuck. So it's way easier to clean. We went ahead and cut out 1x2s around the whole perimeter and wrapped them with pond liner to create that ramping effect. And we're going to be using the actual base, the painted base that you can see, with 2x2s. So then we focused on the back wall. The back wall of the cage is going to be connected to the hutch and the outermost left wall. So for the back wall, we just used a big sheet of kiln dried white pine that we cut to size to be the same height as our second level in our hutch. That height was pretty much determined based on the CNC grids that I've used in the past. To basically, it's just tall enough to accommodate the water bottle height and the hay rack. My girls like to drink from a really high water bottle, so usually the water bottles will be hanging over the top of the CNC grids, and their hay racks, they like to eat up really high as well. I don't know, that's their thing. So that's basically where we got the height from. So we got the sheet of kiln dried pine and we bordered it with 2x2 pieces of wood on the front, as you can see. The reason why we have the 2x2 pieces of wood for the back is because we are using the 2x2s to kind of frame in the cage and fix the wood panel to both the back of the hutch and the bottom table of the cage. So basically the bottom piece of 2x2, we're drilling a wood screw straight down through the 2x2, the 1x2, and into the table. So everything is fixed and secure. And for the top piece, we are drilling through the hutch and into the 2x2 piece of wood on the rightmost side. As you can see here, there is a little bit of a gap with the 2x2 piece of wood and the hutch, so we went ahead and cut a smaller 1x2 to just kind of fill that space, so no hay or anything crazy gets thrown behind. And that's pretty much the back wall. We went ahead and used a scrap 2x2 piece of wood and screwed that straight through for the water bottle. And I don't know, I love them. I've got 4 of them in the cage, and they're my favorite so far. After we secured the back wall of the cage, we went ahead and focused on the front doors. The front doors were a little tricky because I kind of wanted the look of one big door, so it's like a seamless design, but functionally a giant 9-foot door is not the greatest, especially if you're cleaning out a cage. You don't really want 9 feet of space that you kind of have to goalie to make sure none of the pigs get too close to the edge. So we ended up dividing it into two doors in the front. The rightmost door is going to be the same length as the hutch, which is 5 feet long, and we added a smaller door, which is approximately 12 inches, and that's going to be just like a cute little pop-out door that I can use primarily to give them veggies in the morning. I don't really want to have to fold down a 5-foot door every morning just to give them veggies, so the smaller door is really meant for that, giving them treats, veggies, all the fun things. The leftmost door is pretty much going to be the same thing, but minus the small door in the front. So we went ahead and cut the 2x2 pieces of wood to size and just screwed them together with some wood screws and set them off to the side for later. We were still figuring out kind of the hinge process of that, so in the meantime we focused on the side door. The sides of the cage are made by the same 2x2 pieces of wood that we used for the back wall. Basically, we used an L bracket off of the back wall to secure the 2x2 pieces of wood to the back panel and just use wood screws, doing the same technique of just drilling straight through the 2x2 into the pond liner wrapped 1x2 and into the table. For the side panels, I opted to use wire mesh screening for the sidewalls. I decided to go with that because it's the same material that I used on my hutch design in the past, and I really liked it. It's really great for ventilation, and it's also cat proof. We went ahead and meshed the side wall, and in the backmost section of the left side wall, we went ahead and opted to add in kind of like a little pocket door. The purpose of the rearmost door was to have easier access to the backmost water bottles and hay rack. And it's just another quick access point for the back of the cage. So for that back door, we made that out of just some 1x2s that we wood glued together and stapled, and added some more of that mesh that we stapled on the interior as well. So after the door was put in, we went ahead and meshed the interior of the left half wall, and also went ahead and did the same for the right half. The right half, because it is in front of the hutch, was obviously a lot smaller. No special fancy doors or anything like that. It's the same 2x2 material connected to the hutch with an L bracket and meshed on the interior. So both side walls are up, and we started to focus on the lids. The purpose of the lids are to completely be able to enclose the cage, because I do have a multi-animal household with cats, so I want to make sure that I have the ability to enclose the whole cage if I need to. But I also want them functional so I can be able to fold them up and get them out of the way for cleaning purposes. To add the lids, we needed a support piece of wood that connected from the left side wall to the hutch. So we just used a simple 2x2 piece of wood and drilled that into both the sidewall and through the sidewall of the hutch. Once that was in place, we went ahead and focused on building the lids. The lids are made out of 1x2 pieces of wood, the same as the doors, and we connected the corners with L brackets that have 4 screws, which are super durable because these lids are meant to be functional, so they're going to be moving around, so we wanted to make sure that they were stable. So we went ahead and framed out 2, got the L brackets on there, stapled on some wire mesh, and connected both of those pieces together with 2 hinges. And as you can see here, the hinges allow the lid to be able to open halfway and then fold all the way back. So after we built the left lid of the cage, we went ahead and did the same concept for the right half. The right half is going to be hinged off of the hutch of the cage, so we went ahead and did the same design of 1x2 frame, used the L brackets at the corners and meshed the middle, stapled that on there, and connected 2 hinges to the hutch and lid of the right half of the cage. We also needed to add another 2x2 piece of wood for support of the lid that will just allow the lid to rest on that. If we do open the doors, the lid won't need to be opened as well, so they can act interdependently of each other. So now we brought our attention back onto the front door. The front doors were very important to me because I needed to make sure that I had access to cleaning the cage and easy access to all points of the cage. So the only way that we were able to do that is if the lids completely flip down 180, and we were able to achieve that by adding some hinges onto it. So the front doors, as I said before, are 2 independent doors that are connected to the front table with a hinge. And instead of using mesh like we did for the sidewalls and the lid, we went ahead and opted for plexiglass. One tip that we did find out when installing plexiglass is that it does have a tendency to crack. One thing that helped us whenever we were screwing was to add a little bit of painter's tape onto the spots that you were planning on drilling. And whenever you're doing your pilot hole in through the plexiglass, add a little bit of painter's tape on there, and it'll help with that cracking tendency. We got 1 sheet of plexiglass from the hardware store and had them cut it in store. They did that for free. So we went ahead and got 1 sheet, divided it into 2, and used it for both half of the doors. Since the middle door that I added was 12 inches, both of the doors were even now, so they were both 4 feet. The plexiglass doesn't go all the way up to the top, but it does just have a couple inches of a gap, which I didn't really mind too much. Aesthetically, I think it worked out pretty well, and also you can kind of reach your hand in there a little bit just to give the girls a little boop on the nose, which is really fun. So the little gap didn't bother me. If you really wanted it to fill the whole door, I don't think that'd be a problem as far as ventilation goes, because the rest of the cage is super open and airy. So with those folding down completely, I'm able to reach the back of the cage, clean it, pick up the guinea pigs if I need to get them for any reason. There's no point in the cage that I can't reach. So once the plexiglass was in and we hinged the 2 front doors, we went ahead and used a little bit of a scrap piece of that white pine board that we used for the back wall to create a kind of hexagon-ish style front door, which I think is kind of cute. And just put a couple little decorative hinges on there and a little lock. And then after that, we just kind of added a few finishing touches to kind of hide some of the 2x2 aesthetics inside of the pitched roof on the hutch. We went ahead and used another scrap of that pine sheet to kind of put up a little triangle there. I think it's kind of a cool, like, architectural decorative thing. Not really necessary, but why not? We went ahead and finished painting and sealing everything. We used just a regular non-toxic water-based pet safe paint and sealant across the whole thing. Let that cure and just added a couple finishing touches, which was the remainder of the water bottle holders, which I have 4 in this cage currently, and kind of spread them out throughout. And we also installed the main hay rack to the back of the cage. The hay rack that we used is just I don't know what they're called, but they're kind of like a wire basket for kitchen storage, I think, to put like plates or pantry items in, but you can find it in like the kitchen department of any retail store. So we kind of made this little kind of like towel bar rack that this could hang off of. Just added some more scrap 2x2s and 1x2 pieces of wood, and we just fixed that to the back and added the guinea pigs. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the gist of how we built the cage, and I'm really, really happy with how it turns out. I think it looks really good. The guinea pigs seem to love it. There's plenty of space, and it's not a nightmare to clean, which is great. And I'll go ahead and throw up some of the materials and cost that I used to build this cage. I'm not going to be including the materials that were included into the 2-tier hutch design, because honestly the hutch is kind of optional. You don't really need it. You can just use the same material that you did on the left half of the cage and it'll probably be cheaper, but we really wanted to integrate our hutch into the design, or else it would have just been sitting in the garage because we weren't going to use it. So I'll go ahead and add those numbers in so you can have an idea of how much this cost. And again, I'm sorry I don't have the footage from whenever I was actually building the cage. That probably would have been so much more helpful, but at least I have some pictures so I can kind of show the whole process of building this thing if anybody's interested in replicating this or taking some ideas. Yeah, I'm just rambling now, just trying to think of something to say. Well, that's it. I'll stop now.